The Gulf of America is anything but quiet. It's a place of constant movement and massive operations. Oil and gas extraction is a major industry here, and the Mississippi River dumps tons of agricultural waste into its waters, contributing to ongoing pollution. But now, something even bigger is happening. Off the coast of Texas, massive digging has begun. A fleet of high-tech dredging ships is hard at work, scooping up silt, clay, sand, and everything else that makes up the seabed. Over 459 million cubic feet of material have already been removed, and the project stretches across nearly 50 miles of seafloor. And the price tag? A staggering $1.1 billion. But when you're dealing with one of the largest dredging efforts in U.S. history, numbers like that are almost expected. So why is all of this being done? Surprisingly, it's all connected to Mexico. In 2024, the United States and Mexico reached a historic milestone. Their two-way trade hit a record $840 billion. That's not just a big number, it's the largest trade volume the U.S. has ever had with any country. Trade with China and Canada, long considered America's top partners, now trails behind. Mexico has taken the lead, and it doesn't look like it'll be giving up that position anytime soon. This shift is no accident. Roughly 80% of Mexican exports go directly to the United States, while over 40% of Mexico's imports come from its northern neighbor. These aren't just statistics, they reveal a deep, intertwined relationship that continues to grow. Even the COVID-19 pandemic couldn't slow the momentum for long. After a brief dip in 2020, U.S. Mexico trade came roaring back and has been setting new records ever since. A large portion of this trade moves by land, especially through key border crossings like the one in Laredo, Texas. Laredo has become a vital artery for commerce, but it's also a bottleneck. In 2024 alone, over 3 million trucks crossed into the U.S. from Mexico through this single city, more than half of all land-based freight traffic. Add to that strict customs procedures and red tape, and the delays start stacking up fast. At the same time, a new global shift is underway. Nearshoring. More and more factories are relocating from Asia to Mexico, aiming to be closer to their main markets in the U.S. This puts even more pressure on cross-border infrastructure and makes sea routes like the Gulf of Mexico more important than ever. Enter the Port of Houston. The Port of Houston is already the top U.S. port by tonnage. In 2024, its public terminals handled a staggering 53 million tons of cargo, the weight equivalent of over 5,000 Eiffel Towers. The port is also a container powerhouse. Last year, it processed over 4.1 million TEUs, ranking 5th in the country. In fact, 74% of all container traffic in the Gulf of Mexico passed through Houston alone. The port's connection with Mexico is especially strong. In 2023, Houston's trade with its southern neighbor totaled nearly $25 billion. And yes, Neo-Panamax container ships, capable of carrying up to 15,000 TEUs, are already docking at the port. But not without complications. That's because these massive ships must pass through the Houston Ship Channel, a waterway that presents serious challenges. In many sections, the channel is just 525 feet wide. That might sound fine, until you imagine two enormous container ships trying to pass each other. To do so, captains employ a risky technique nicknamed the Texas Chicken, steering toward one another before relying on hydrodynamic forces to veer away and avoid collision. It's dramatic and dangerous. Depth is another issue. In several parts, the channel is only 45 feet deep, while fully loaded Neo-Panamax ships require at least 50 feet of draft. The result? These ships often arrive underloaded, wasting both time and space. As trade volumes grow year after year, this situation becomes more unsustainable. That's where Project 11 comes in. Named because it marks the 11th major expansion of the Houston Ship Channel, Project 11 is the largest and most complex upgrade to date. Planning took over a decade, and by 2022, the paperwork was done and the dredging began. The project's core goals are simple but ambitious: widen and deepen the channel to accommodate the growing flow of maritime traffic. For example, the stretch near Galveston Bay will be expanded from 525 feet to 699 feet. That extra width allows two giant vessels to pass safely, no more Texas Chicken required. At the same time, the upper section of the channel will be deepened to 46 feet. Altogether, 40 of the channel's 58 miles will be modified. To avoid disrupting port traffic during construction, the project was divided into 6 segments and 12 construction packages, allowing crews to work simultaneously across different areas. By 2023, 2 key segments, 1A and 2, were completed on time. The Port of Houston and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers coordinated the work, demonstrating that the plan was sound. In winter 2024, Segment 1B was finished. This 8-mile stretch from Redfish Reef to Bayport is considered one of the most critical parts of the entire project. To tackle it, elite dredging ships were deployed: the Avalon from Curtin Maritime, the C.R. McCaskill from Weeks Marine, and the General Arnold from Callan Marine. Equipped with advanced GPS and sonar systems, these vessels tracked every inch of excavation with remarkable precision. Other equipment included self-propelled hopper dredgers and mechanical dredgers, vital for handling denser soils and working in tight areas. Curtin Maritime alone removed 134 million cubic feet of seabed. Altogether, over 432 million cubic feet of material has already been dredged from Galveston Bay. Currently, work is progressing on Segment 1C, stretching from Bayport to Barba's Cut. It's expected to wrap up between summer and fall 2025. After that, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers will take over and oversee the remaining work, which is scheduled for completion by 2029. Once finished, the new channel will not only eliminate the Texas chicken problem, but also allow for safer, more efficient shipping. While a depth of 46 feet still won't accommodate fully loaded Neo-Panamax vessels, the upgrade allows them to carry significantly heavier loads, up to 17,000 TEUs. That translates into real-world gains: lower shipping costs, faster turnarounds, and less pressure on already clogged land routes. But Project 11 isn't just a trade boost, it's an economic engine. It's projected to add up to $200 billion annually to U.S. GDP by increasing shipping efficiency and attracting new investment to the region. In Texas alone, it could create 252,000 jobs. Nationally, that number jumps to over 3.3 million. And those aren't just construction jobs. The ripple effects will impact logistics, warehousing, manufacturing, and export industries for decades to come. Of course, not everyone is thrilled. Local concerns about the environment and public health have been building for years. The Houston Ship Channel has been expanded 10 times already, and past dredging efforts dump huge amounts of material near communities like Galena Park. The Army Corps of Engineers has always insisted it was safe. But tests in 2019 told another story. Toxic substances, including pesticides and heavy metals like mercury, lead, and cadmium, were found in the dredged soil at levels far above safe limits. These pollutants had settled quietly on the seafloor for years, until they were dug up and piled near neighborhoods, schools, and playgrounds. On windy days, fine dust can blow straight into residential areas. And during heavy rains, poorly drained embankments can flood, carrying pollutants into homes and streets. By 2050, nearly 883 million cubic feet of material are expected to be dredged and deposited locally. So far, about half of that has already been unearthed as part of Project 11. But there's another side to the story. According to project planners, 100% of the non-muddy material from Galveston Bay is being used for environmental restoration. Roughly 10 acres of new islands have been created for birds to nest and feed. Around 790 acres of wetlands are also being restored, wetlands that improve water quality and reduce flooding in storm-prone Houston. The project also includes reviving between 324 and 376 acres of oyster reefs. These reefs are nature's water filters and provide vital habitats for marine life, including species that support the region's fishing economy. And what about the dredging machines themselves? Project 11 is deploying some of the most modern vessels in the industry, equipped with Tier 4 engines, among the cleanest in terms of emissions, according to federal standards. Once the channel is fully upgraded, ships will be able to pass through faster and more efficiently, reducing fuel use and lowering nitrogen oxide emissions by an estimated 3 to 7%. This aligns with the broader green strategy of the Port of Houston. Since 2016, the port has cut its carbon emissions by 55% and aims to reach net zero emissions by 2050. Thousands of acres of protected wetlands have already been created under earlier restoration programs, and Project 11 continues that trend. But while most of the attention is focused on Texas, what is Mexico doing? Plenty. Mexico is also upgrading its maritime infrastructure to keep pace with the growing trade relationship. One of the most ambitious projects is the modernization of the port of Veracruz, one of the oldest and most important ports in the country. Roughly $410 million is being invested to nearly triple its cargo capacity, from 28 million to 95 million tons annually. Construction includes a new terminal and the longest breakwater in Latin America, stretching 2.7 miles. It's expected to go live by late 2025. Meanwhile, the Port of Altamira is undergoing major upgrades of its own. These aren't just physical improvements, they include digital infrastructure, cargo tracking systems, and automation. Programs like the National Infrastructure Initiative and the Special Ports and Fleet Program are working to bring Mexican ports up to world-class standards. Together, the efforts on both sides of the border point toward a shared goal, creating a faster, greener, and more efficient trade network between the U.S. and Mexico. Will it succeed? We'll find out in just a few years. Think the Arctic is just a frozen wasteland? Think again. Northern Russia, long known for its icy extremes, is now at the center of one of the world's most ambitious infrastructure expansions. Russia and China have teamed up to transform the Arctic into a major trade corridor through the development of the Northern Sea Route, or NSR, and they're not holding back. Massive dredging operations are underway, pulling millions of tons of soil from the seafloor. A major terminal is under construction that will one day handle 100 million tons of oil, one of the world's most vital resources. This isn't some small-scale effort. It's part of a $100 billion mega-project that includes everything from power stations to newly built villages, all designed to support this Arctic trade route. Connectivity isn't a problem either. Russia is laying down thousands of miles of fiber-optic cable across the tundra. In short, the Arctic may be cold, but it's heating up fast, economically and geopolitically. But this surge in activity isn't going unnoticed. The United States and Canada aren't exactly celebrating this shift in the global trade landscape. And for good reason. The NSR could challenge one of the world's most important trade passages, the Suez Canal. Let's zoom out for context. The Northern Sea Route isn't new. It's been in use since the 1930s. But until recently, it played only a minor role in international shipping. In 2022, just over 34 million tons of cargo passed through the NSR. In 2023, that figure crept up to 36.2 million tons, a record, yes, but still tiny compared to its rival. That same year, the Suez Canal moved roughly 1.5 billion tons of cargo, even while facing serious disruptions. The disparity is staggering. So, what's holding the NSR back? Ice. Lots of it. Despite recent warming trends, the Arctic remains frozen for much of the year. In many stretches, the NSR is navigable for only about 2 months annually without the help of icebreakers. The Suez Canal, by contrast, is ice-free year-round. Russia, however, has a solution: its fleet of powerful icebreakers. As of early 2025, Russia operated 34 diesel-electric icebreakers and 8 nuclear ones, more than any other nation. These icebreakers regularly guide cargo ships along the Arctic's treacherous waters. In 2023 alone, Russia's nuclear fleet completed more than 730 escort missions. One notable operation involved the rescue of a bulk carrier named Gingo, which had capsized while carrying over 160,000 tons of iron ore. It took 13 days, but the mission succeeded, proving the fleet's crucial role. Still, even with this support, the NSR can't yet match the cargo volumes of the Suez Canal. The infrastructure and natural limitations are just too great for now. But that may be changing. Climate change is shrinking the Arctic ice cap, opening up longer windows for navigation. Researchers say this trend could eventually reduce the need for constant icebreaker assistance, lowering operational costs and making the route more attractive. And here's the kicker: the NSR is significantly shorter for certain routes. Take Tokyo to Hamburg, for example. The NSR cuts that trip to about 8,000 miles compared to 12,400 miles through the Suez Canal. That's a big deal. Meanwhile, trouble is brewing for the Suez Canal. The Red Sea region, which it feeds into, has become increasingly dangerous. Pirate attacks, missile strikes, and political unrest have all disrupted shipping. In 2024, just over 13,000 vessels passed through the canal, a 50% drop from the previous year's 26,000. That kind of uncertainty is pushing companies to consider alternatives, and the NSR is looking more viable by the day. Let's dive into one key hub of the NSR, the Bay of Ob, home to the Sabeta port. It's central to the Yamal LNG project, a joint venture between Russia and Chinese investors. Liquefied natural gas produced here is shipped directly via the NSR to international markets. By 2019, Sabetta was already moving nearly 20 million tons of cargo annually. But Russia had bigger plans. The largest dredging effort in Russian history was launched to deepen and expand the Bay of Ob's sea channel. In 2020, a multinational fleet of dredgers and over 1,000 workers removed more than 1.1 billion cubic feet of soil from the seabed in just 79 days. The aim? To make the channel accessible for Yamal Max-class LNG tankers, giants that measure nearly 1,000 feet long and carry up to 80,000 tons of cargo. By 2030, project leaders expect the channel to accommodate up to 9 such vessels per day, drastically increasing throughput. Now head east to Dixon, Russia's northernmost settlement. Just 25 miles away, a massive oil terminal is rising, Bukta Sever. Construction began in 2021 with the delivery of 20,000 tons of cargo and materials by ice-class ships. Phase 1 included docks, storage areas, workshops, and coastal reinforcements. As of early 2025, work is well into its next phase, which includes 2 oil loading piers and the backbone infrastructure of the Sever terminal. Once completed, it will feature 102 oil storage tanks and an annual capacity of 100 million tons. That would make it Russia's largest oil terminal, right in the Arctic. Feeding this giant facility is another huge project, Vostok Oil. With a $100 billion price tag, it's developing Arctic oil fields that will feed directly into Sever. A 248-mile pipeline is planned to move the oil, supported by 13 new power plants and over 4,300 miles of transmission lines. Plans also call for 15 new towns and 2 airstrips to support the operations. Will all of it be built? That remains to be seen. But even if only the core infrastructure is completed, including the port and pipeline, it will mark a massive leap forward for the NSR. Then there's the Polar Express, a 7,800-mile-long underwater fiber-optic cable stretching from Murmansk to Vladivostok. Russia is already producing the necessary cable at a new facility in Murmansk. The goal is clear, to ensure that every inch of this Arctic corridor is connected and operational. International players are taking note. The United Arab Emirates, through its global port operator DP World, signed a 2021 deal with Russia's Rosatom to co-develop the NSR. Their efforts include modernizing the port of Vladivostok and enhancing Murmansk, both key entry and exit points along the route. China, meanwhile, is deeply involved. It launched the Polar Silk Road in 2017, the Arctic branch of its Belt and Road Initiative. Through this, China has poured money into Arctic ports like Sabetta, Arkhangelsk, and others. In Arkhangelsk, it's backing a new terminal for large vessels, along with a 500-mile railway linking the port to inland Russia, further integrating the NSR with China's global trade network. All these projects are pushing toward an ambitious goal: 220 million tons of cargo annually along the NSR by 2035. That's over 6 times the 2023 total of 36 million tons. Is it achievable? Maybe, but it'll require everything to go right. Reduced ice, lower costs, better infrastructure. All of that is working in Russia's favor. A typical journey from China to Europe via the NSR could take just 19 days, compared to 48 days through the southern route. Plus, there are no pirates in the Arctic and no missile strikes to worry about. Still, the competition isn't sitting idle. The U.S. and Canada have access to their own Arctic path, the Northwest Passage. But they're far behind in ice-breaking capabilities. The U.S. hasn't designed a new heavy icebreaker since the 1970s. Its only operational one, the aging Polar Star, is nearly 50 years old. A new vessel is under development, but the project is years behind schedule and 60% over budget. Canada is faring slightly better, with 9 icebreakers in service and 2 heavy ones under construction. But neither country currently has the capacity to challenge Russia's Arctic dominance. This imbalance is raising alarms in Washington. China's Arctic ambitions are also on the radar. It operates research stations in Norway and Iceland and has made moves to gain influence in Greenland, offers that were ultimately blocked with help from Denmark. So where is all this heading? The NSR is no longer just a Russian fantasy. It's shaping up to be a genuine alternative to traditional trade routes and possibly a serious rival to the Suez Canal. But its future depends not just on engineering and logistics, but also on geopolitics. And in the Arctic, As in the rest of the world, politics can shift as fast as the ice.